What's up, everyone? This is Holden with Perry and Hunter for our last episode of Star Wars Month here on Two Dads, One Controller. We've talked about all 9 films, from pod racing to Palpatine's return. Now it's time to talk about the rest of Star Wars. Let's get into it.
Two dads playing late in the night. Video games, shine neon lights. Control the world, saving the day. Superheroes come out to play.
Let's start this off with some good old-fashioned rankings so we can leave the movies behind, or at least the 3 trilogies, and get into whatever we want to get into. Video games, TV shows, side characters, side plots, side bays, whatever. So, to rank, I want to hear from both of you. Ranking each trilogy on its own, how would you rank the trilogies? I already know what last place is. I feel like it's a pretty clear ranking, but y'all could surprise me.
You want to go first, Hunter?
I'm okay. I'm gonna say, and this is gonna be a little bit controversial, but I say prequels over original trilogy, just because it's what I grew up with, and it really solidified my love of Star Wars. And then any and every piece of media ever made of all time, and then the sequels.
I'm gonna say prequel over the original in some cases, but overall, I think I'm just gonna say I'm biased. I put Rogue One and Andor over all the other ones, and anything else can fall in between. But I just think Rogue One and Andor was like the best iteration of Star Wars of all Star Wars.
All right, let's talk about Andor and Rogue One. What do you think kind of made that show and movie? Really, I mean, there would be no show without the success of the movie. What do you think made that movie work?
The Empire is competent, and the Empire wasn't a laughing stock in terms of how they handled stuff. They were actually like thinking people. Like they showed how they're geniuses, like this is a power that's been rolling over the galaxy for a while, so they can't be like completely stupid. They got to be pretty smart. And I think that's what Rogue One really set up and showed, because like it was obviously a rebel success, but that success came with so much death and loss for the rebels, and then it showed just like Krennic, the actor in that movie, was just 10 out of 10. He's like one of my favorite like Imperial characters. And it also showed like the Imperial Army. That's something that's not a lot that no one ever talks about. We always talk about the stormtroopers and stuff, but they also show the Imperial Army, which is nice. This is like in the earlier scenes, whenever you seen Cassian, I forgot the name of the battle, but it was like a gruesome battle, and that's usually the Imperial Army takes over those first, and then the Empire steps in and stuff like that.
I think it was a little bit more grounded and very rooted within the canon that had been built up since the prequel trilogy. And I can't remember the exact release order, but we did get, Rogue One in the middle of some goofy Disney movies. And to see that Disney is able to make a competent, grounded, thoughtful, and just, complete Star Wars story at the time was really reassuring. And I mean, almost 10 years later, it just really stands the test of time where, I mean, I'm not really running to watch the prequels again, but I will jump at any chance to watch Rogue One. But it was great. It was kind of like there were a lot of loose threads everywhere, and they took that and they really weaved it into this complete story. I mean, you have a lot of characters from like the Clone Wars series coming and making their like live action debut, like Saw Gerrera. You have a lot of new characters who, it's hard to care about a new character, but they really did a good job of establishing those storylines very early on without harping on the, I guess, character building aspect of it. you have a decent amount of comedic relief with K2SO, but not you're not really drowning in, the comedy and the punchlines of it all. And I think that they didn't botch the ending, which is one of the most important parts. I think when I was watching it for the first time, watching Jin and Cassian on the beach, spoiler alert, and they didn't kiss, I was like, finally, you guys made one confident decision. And you know what? Sometimes that's enough.
Yeah, and like it was good to see people not have like just the most egregious plot armor, and it's good to not always have to, because I don't know. I feel like s- to me, Star Wars is more than just lightsabers, and I feel like at least media in general kind of overdo the amount of lightsabers because there's a giant galaxy. There's only so many Jedi's. There's only so many Sith. There's more everyday people and like more aliens that are not Jedi's. And like, Star Wars, you're just always seeing Jedi's involved. And it's like, it'd be nice to have a story where we're not relying on a Jedi to be our Lord or Savior. And that's why I think that's also another reason why it kind of resonated because you can't really like relate with Jedis all the time. You can with Luke, but a lot of them you cannot relate to him in certain ways. But that's just me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think they do a really good job of that. Even with, and his name escapes me right now, but the blind character who was some sort of student of the Force, but not necessarily a Jedi.
I know the
Just being
actor's
able to
name, but
show
I
us,
can't remember that. His name's Donnie Yen, but I can't remember the character's name.
yeah, but like just showing us that there's more to the Force than the Jedi and the Sith, and then just as the implications for the franchise as a whole. I think telling somebody in 2025, if you had just recently gotten exposure to Star Wars, that it's not all lightsaber battles and Jedi, you're like, yeah, like there's a bunch of projects that show that now. But this was really the first project where they only have, I guess, what, 30 seconds of Darth Vader in the entire film, and the rest of it is just pure like Rebels, Star Wars, chase on the run.
And that was
And all of that.
shot with Darth Vader. That was shot weeks before that movie came out. As though they wanted something. They wanted something to tie the end of Rogue One to where, like, you finish Rogue One and it by the frame gets you right to when Episode 4 starts.
Well, that was an amazing last second decision.
And honestly, I think it kind of checks out too because at the end of Rogue One, not Rogue One, at the end of Andor, you kind of see it at the end of that as well.
But
Like
yeah, no,
how
it's interesting in 2025, like just all of the non-Jedi Sith centric Star Wars projects that we have now, and I do really think that the success of Rogue One was the catalyst for that. I'm very, as a Star Wars fan who is, I feel like not recently, it's been, the past couple of years with all the TV shows, but like definitely reinvigorate, regenerate. I don't know. My love for Star Wars is pretty strong, but I do feel like there was a little bit of a lull. The new TV shows have added a nice new perspective.
I feel like some of the shows hit and some didn't. And even on the shows that hit, I don't think necessarily all their seasons hit. I'll say,
What's the comment within the comment there?
well, I'll say so. Like Andor, I think hit. Like I got the flu like a week ago, and so because I've heard y'all talk about it, so I was like, I'll watch Andor, and it was good. I will say, kind of a closing thought on Andor. I enjoyed the look into, like Perry said, into the Empire as a competent military and political force. And it kind of like got away from the lightsabers to see kind of the other side of, and the force to get this other side of the rebellion, like heists and things like that. So I appreciated that with Andor, and then it didn't work in some movies like Solo, a Star Wars, story where again got away from the lightsabers and focused on the, kind of the origin of this famous character, and it didn't do what it was supposed to do. It had a Ron Howard to direct it, and it didn't perform. But then you get into like my comment of, this might be a hot take, Mandalorian. I do enjoy Mandalorian, and I know everyone says season 1 is The best, I just thought maybe this is why people liked it. I just thought season one was just a bunch of side quests. Or like, hey, you need to for me to give you this information, you need to run this errand for me. Oh, for me to give you this, you gotta go do this task. Like, oh, you want this object? Yeah, it's in this dragon's lair or this whatever's nest. Like it was just, oh, your ship broke down, the whole episode is repairing the ship. It's just like these
Yeah.
little like side quests for that season. I think season three was the worst, I will say, out of the it had moments, but I think I enjoyed season two the most. I think it had the most
Yeah,
fan
I think
service too.
yeah. I think season one was you're kind of like building up the character, building up the lore in a sense, because with Rogue One you kind of don't need as much context because it's not like these are like super strong, elite warriors in Star Wars. Like they're just rebels who happen to be at the right place at the right time. But Mandalorian, you're really trying to figure out what makes Dinjarin, excuse me, just better than the average soldier or the average warrior. And I did want to touch on something that you said about Solo. It's just Solo in general. Definitely agree. I think it's a very forgettable movie. I think they did the character of Han Solo a little bit of a disservice by giving him a backstory. I feel like one of the best qualities of Han was kind of like that mystery that surrounded him and a little bit of the less is more. Like, I know
Mhm.
especially with Revenge of the Sith coming up on the 20-year anniversary, people have been putting out a lot of facts on the internet. And one thing that kind of caught my eye and my ear was the fact that there was like a plot line for Han Solo where he was supposed to be like raised by Chewbacca that got cut from the story because George Lucas thought it was a little bit too much fan service and didn't really make sense for the plot. But I think that they should have kept that mentality when they were writing Solo and maybe decided against it. But that's just my opinion.
I agree in the sense that it's very much like with the comics for Batman, right? With Joker, is that until recent years, they never really talked about the origin of the Joker. It was a mystery. And you kind of what leads a person to go down this path and to kind of be the way they are. And I think there's a certain bliss in the ignorance of that rise or that story that gets them from A to B. And I think Solo is a project that didn't need to be made. Like I could see them doing like cameos of a young Han Solo, like how he's popped up here and there, but they didn't need to do a full feature length movie. But I'll say as far as, bad writing as well, I don't think this is a hot take, but I think Book of Boba Fett was very disappointing. It felt like I appreciated the overall concept of like the underworld lore of Star Wars, but it felt like it was a season of Boba Fett, but in the middle of it is two episodes of Mandalorian, like season 2.5, and then where they didn't have anything really to show, they just threw a bunch of flashbacks in there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. I think the only thing redeeming of that season is the fact that Mandalorian season 2.5 was shoehorned in there. I think it was a little bit of a character assassination of Boba Fett because, he's just a bounty hunter. I don't really understand the whole change of heart. And again, it's the whole less is more. Star Wars is a gigantic universe with so much, source material through legends and canon books. But we decide as I'm not part of, Disney or anything, but the decision to flesh out that character and really like zig when the character zag just doesn't make any sense. And I think that all of Star Wars' worst projects are, the sequels, of course, and then any project where they're just trying to flesh out a mysterious character. Except for Darth Maul, it just has not worked out well, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I think they could have just never made. Yeah, they could have never made that, and then they did my boy Cad Bane dirty in that movie, like that series. Like
I
Cad Bane
agree.
didn't deserve that kind of death. Like, bro, what? Come on now.
After how much of a badass he was in the Clone Wars, and then he like goes
Yeah,
like that, like taking
I
on
was,
Jedi Masters to that. Get out of here.
it, I was like, come on, man. We could have just left that alone, but yeah. what's the lady's name that was in Mandalorian? Gina, it's like Gina Carn.
Gina,
Car-
in Mandalorian that got in trouble.
yeah. What's her name?
She is
Gina.
Gina Carano.
Cardos or whatever. She
Carano.
does not like my people.
Huh?
She does not like my people.
But I ain't gonna lie, bro. I love that lady. That's all I'm gonna say. Like in terms of looks, like I would marry her. But anywho, yeah, no, like overall, I think The Mandalorian was a success. Season 3 was a bit, I don't know, it's kind of memeish. And there were some things he did, like I kind of liked. Some people thought it was kind of like, oh, it breaks the code and all of this. Whenever Mando just gave up the dark saber, people just lost their minds. I get it. Like it's like a huge part of their religion, but their religion what was holding them back. So I thought that was like a good scene where they kind of just were like, bro, screw this, screw these rules, man. We need to get together. But yeah, I don't really got much to say, honestly. Like,
I'd
I
say
have a decent amount to say about the Mandalorian. Man, and because this is the first Star Wars non-animated Star Wars TV show that we got from Disney, and I really think that they came out swinging. And I know, Holden, you weren't a huge fan of the side quest narrative going on in the first season, but even with that, I was on the edge of my seat. I remember, when this came out, and I was a little bit burned out from the sequels, from Solo. I mean, I feel like we hadn't had a good Star Wars project since Rogue One at that point, which, we'd been like 3 or 4 years removed. And I just remember turning that on for season 1, episode 1, and just being like, it's a Star Wars Western. Like, they made a Star Wars Western. And it was so cool to see a new take, fresh characters, and they have the casting. I love between like getting Warner Herzog. I learned today that Taika Waititi was the voice of IG-11. I can't believe I didn't put that together. Carl Weathers, Pedro Pascal, who I mean we see limited, but still pretty cool when you get the inevitable helmet coming off moment of each season. And then going into like the later, or not even the later seasons, but like, oh, I can't remember his name, the bald Boston guy.
bald Boston guy.
Bill Burr.
the bald
Dude,
Boston guy.
Remember
Bald
the
Boston.
Prison Break
Oh, Bill.
episode, and he's like the
Oh, I
the
remember.
guy that
I like Bill Burr a
yeah
lot.
Oh,
yeah.
I
And
like Bill Burr too. I just didn't know who you were talking about for like half a
oh no,
second.
my bad. But
Like,
I remember watching that episode, and I was like, is that Bill Burr in Star Wars? But that was so cool, and it did something in a different way, similarly to Rogue One, where you're weaving in the canon from all of the animated TV shows. I mean, you have live action Ahsoka, live action Bo-Katan, and you get, the Darksaber stories. Oh, and I can't even forget, you know, Moff Gideon. What a great casting there. But I don't know. I have such a deep love for The Mandalorian, and I will certainly be there. I don't know about the day that it releases, because who's to say what's going to be happening next May when it comes out, but I will certainly get to the theaters as fast as I can to see that movie.
With
fun fact about Bo-Katan is this came from the mouth of the lion, not from me. But she used to always talk about how like everyone used to always request for her to step on them. Don't know why, but a lot of people wanted Bo-Katan to step on them.
We
Just,
have different definitions of fun.
just throwing that out there.
And I know that season 3 gets a lot of flack. Sorry for cutting you off, Holden.
There you
But I
go.
mean, you can't tell me that those aren't some fun episodes. And I know a lot of people hate, and a lot of people don't like some of the people that show up in season 3. But the second that I saw Jack Black and Lizzo in Star Wars, I knew we were doing something.
That was awful.
No, your opinion on that is awful, and I'm sorry to disagree with you, but wow, I was so I was so happy to see that, and I knew it would piss so many people off because you know what they say, nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans, but I'm like, this is what it's all about. I love all the fun cameos because at the end of the day, I think there's a Star Wars fan in all of us, and we'd all want to be on a TV show or a Star Wars project if we had the chance to.
I think it just distracts from the episode. Like you're thinking, like at these celebrities want, like, be an alien, be a stormtrooper, be like, get into Star Wars. Don't
It's
just.
Jack Black.
And a Lizzo who like made her dance. I mean, you know what she did.
If Grogu trust Lizzo, then I trust Lizzo.
Oh no.
I so get
I don't
Next.
know. Like I personally didn't really like. I don't. I think too many people try to watch TV shows, and so I will say this. This is real quick. I think a lot of people probably didn't really have that much of an issue with it until like critics said something about it, and I think there's a huge stark difference from the way critics watch movies and TV shows, the ways versus the normal person or watch movies and TV shows, because critics have to do this all day, whether they like it or not. As opposed to the normal person, they can just go watch it and take it for what it is. Critics, they see certain things more, they're gonna dock it as opposed to the normal human. I think critics made that part like they voice their opinion loud enough to where Star Wars fans see it and they voice their opinions even louder. I don't know. Like I don't think it was that big of a deal. I just personally don't get it. Like it's just a casting. It wasn't like they're a main casting. Like for example, The Last of Us, the main casting is bad. And I still watch it because I like it. But like this was just like a side person that you're gonna see for 10 minutes of an episode. Like, come on. Like it's not that big.
yeah, build a bridge and get over it. But no, I think it did a really good job of setting up the storyline and the kind of era of in between the Galactic Empire and the First Order. And I'm really excited to see what they do with that story in general. Ahsoka season 2 is on the horizon, the movie as well, and I feel like there's a lot of different directions that they can go with it. And as a fan of Rebels as well, it's nice to see all of those storylines start to make their way into live action as well.
So let's talk about the Ahsoka series. I told Perry this. Ahsoka is probably my favorite Star Wars character. Like up there. It's real close in the top 3 probably for me. Or at least top uh first and second are always the same, but then third is just gets switched out all the time. But anyway, I think that Ahsoka, for what it was, especially, I mean, they put these episodes in theaters when they did the flashbacks to the Clone Wars. I think that what that episode highlighted more than anything, more than Hayden Christensen coming back, like more than anything, it's hard to see in animation, but in live action, how young she was when she was put into as a Padawan and put into these wars, like literally, killing. Like in the episode, she kills what is their assault on Mandalore,
Yeah.
where she in that episode in Clone Wars goes to fight Darth Maul, and she was that age.
Yeah, that's why the clones didn't really like at the beginning, didn't like the Jedis because they were putting like literally just random people and making them generals because they're a Jedi. And like some of these generals could be younger than these clones that were manufactured and, the clone manufacturing, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. No, I don't know. I think to me, like I think it kind of captured it. Like there were some parts that like showed Ahsoka's age, if that makes sense.
I was hoping for more. Like, I like her style of fighting reminds me a lot of Nightwing from, like, Batman family of.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. It's really jumpy,
It's
really acrobatic.
very acrobatic, agile, 2 weapons, very quick, deliberate movements. And I just feel like we didn't get that in Ahsoka as far as the acrobatic. And I know that's hard to do, I'm sure, with like live action, but give me something.
Yeah, I think it's harder to do. And I mean, also, you're kind of at two ends of the spectrum. Like in Ahsoka, the live action series, that's the oldest that we're seeing Ahsoka. She's been out of the Jedi Order for a long time, even though she's still, she has a relationship with the Force and is some sort of, can't remember the label. But, when we see her in the Clone Wars TV show, like she's, young, I'm guessing like preteen, jumping around, doing all this cool like lightsaber moves. And, we can all understand that our bodies do not move the same way that they used to when we were in like middle school.
Yeah.
I want
I
to,
think a really fun thing that Ahsoka introduced was the introduction of Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. Not even really sure what to call them because they're obviously not Siths. I guess Dark Jedi's is what the word on the street is. But yeah, I really like how they're fleshing out antagonists that aren't necessarily, bad or good. Like we're getting a lot of these morally gray characters, and I think that's a cool introduction in some of these TV shows.
I liked
Um,
Bateman a lot for that show, but I want to like
I,
hit on the topic or the like theme, and it's in Ahsoka, it's in Obi-Wan, it's in episode 8 of Star Wars. This theme, and in episode 5 for Yoda, this theme of like old of these characters that are old and isolate themselves and cut themselves off, and then having this arc of redemption back into the people they were, like, reconnecting with the Force or whatever. I think it's an overplayed arc because it's happened now. I mean, that was just off the top of my head 4 times.
It's a little played out.
3.5 because Yoda didn't come back to the Force necessarily, or maybe he did, but in training Luke. So I'm gonna say 4.
but I guess, but like, I feel like it's like it is played out, but like it's kind of realistic. Like, what do you think? Like, whenever the Jedi, whenever the Jedi Order fell, do you think all of the Jedi's continued their training? Like, they probably stayed in tune with the Force in some ways, but not like, like I don't expect them to come back and be this, righteous. And I think I know what you're saying, but I don't think it's played out. I personally don't. Like, you see it in the Sod Ventress and Bad Batch, but like it's not. I don't know. I don't think it's played out. I just think it would be like a realistic interpretation of what a Jedi will probably be, or maybe a Sith will probably be in the times of isolation, because you're doing all of that stuff. I feel like at some point you're gonna want to just have some me time, like be by yourself and read a book or something. I
The
don't know.
only arc where I think that makes sense is Yoda because he lost on the biggest stage out of anyone because he lost to the Emperor in the chamber. He had a chance to take down the Sith and he lost and then went into and then like I mean, you think about it from his perspective and how old he is. He has most likely trained every single Jedi because I I don't know if he is the oldest Jedi in the order, but he's been there a long time and trained a lot of Jedi, and they all died, like all in the same day or same
Uh, uh,
series of days died, and he lost the chance to end it.
yeah, but like Ahsoka damn near had her master try to kill her. Like she's lost in a huge, like, in out of all of the Star Wars, like that last bit of the Clone War, I have never in my life felt remotely emotional. But those scenes where Rex was like trying not to shoot Ahsoka, and then like Ahsoka coming to terms that, we might have to kill the rest of these dudes and I've worked with them forever. That was a pretty emotional moment. So like after that, I could see Ahsoka being like, dude, screw this. Like they painted me as a traitor, and then I come back to try to help the finally win this war. My my best mates are a part of this new Empire army that just tried to kill me. I'm going into hideout mode, man. Screw this. I could see it.
Yeah, no, I think the only one where it doesn't make sense out of the four I can think of off the top of my head is Luke, because you have every opportunity, and I mean I'm not going to talk about it more than one sentence because we've already talked about it in detail, but you have every opportunity to write a different narrative, and they don't. But yeah, Obi-Wan makes sense, Yoda makes sense, Ahsoka makes sense. Luke is
Obi-Wan, I
crazy
give
writing.
Obi-Wan a half makes sense because he's there to protect Luke. Like, why are you, going into isolation, like not, training, like This is what you get put on yourself to be your life's purpose is to protect this child.
Yeah, but he went to Tatooine to meditate on how to communicate with Qui-Gon's Force Ghost, which, spoiler alert, worked out.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that's a very like they're human at the end of the day. Like I feel like it would, you know, it would be more ridiculous to see them come back and they're like they're starting as if they never stopped. That would be like bro, you telling me you've been doing this in isolation for 10 years and you come back and you're ready? Like I don't know. That's just to me that would be more distracting. Shout
I
out to my girl Morgan Espet. No one's talking about you. I haven't forgot about you. I think you're a great character. And Ahsoka, you got done wrong by the right sisters.
I think that in Obi-Wan, I all right, I just want to hit on Obi-Wan real quick and then we'll like get more into the Clone Wars. Okay, so for Obi-Wan, they kind of lost me at the very beginning when Leia is like running through the woods, this little toddler, as grown ass bounty hunters, like dipping and weaving. That was outrageously awful. But you have Vader, who is in his prime at this point, and if you look at comics, at books, he is like a Jedi Slayer. And Obi-Wan's been back with the Force for what, a week? And he can take Vader on head to head?
But it's not that he's back with the Force. He's always been with the Force. And I mean, I think, yeah, the first episode or three of Obi-Wan is rough, but then I do think you get some of like the peak Star Wars content of like the post-COVID era. Especially if nothing else, I mean, getting Hayden Christensen to come back and reprise the role, and who plays Jar Jar? I feel so bad that I forget his name right now.
Yeah, he got his little
Um,
moment.
yeah, he got his little moment. Oh, Ahmad Best. That was just really cool in terms of like, we're all people, and these two people are part of something that I loved as a child. But it kind of always broke my heart a little to see them get so much flack for it when they're just an actor. Good actors follow scripts or whatever. But it's great to see them like actually enjoying Star Wars again. But some of the scenes that we get in Obi-Wan are just insane. I mean, that whole episode of and I guess this is the point that I'm getting to, the episode where Obi-Wan and Anakin are fighting in the Jedi Temple and they're kind of like mirroring each other's moves and kind of talking through it the entire episode. I think it like is the example of how he's able to keep up with Anakin, because at the end of the day, as powerful as Darth Vader is, Obi-Wan was the one who trained him and the one who knows all of his moves. So you can be as powerful as you want, but when you go up with somebody who's so familiar with you and your fighting style, and that's the thing. I mean, Obi-Wan is a very defensive fighter with a lightsaber. He wasn't trying to fight Anakin as much as he was trying to mirror and deflect his moves, which is why I think he was so successful in that fight. And
Obi-Wan was a serious mind gamer too.
yeah, for real. I'm saying, but I think the Obi-Wan TV show gets a lot of flack, but when you get to the later episodes, it's kind of like that picture of that person who gives up mining right before they hit diamonds. I think the last couple of episodes of Obi-Wan were peak Star Wars.
Yeah,
So
I think like for me, Obi-Wan, it was like the Sinisters, the Inquisitors, sorry. Like the Inquisitors were a little
The
like
Sinisters would have been a better name.
and- yeah, the Inquisitors were a little full of themselves. And like I wish they did like a different route of the like I kind of wish they handled them a little differently because like their character designs are pretty cool and like they kind of beat it on at the beginning, the main sister, she was kind of letting her ambition take over as opposed to focusing on doing something. And I wish they kind of stayed with that, but that's all. I'm gonna not talk too much on that. Like
I
I don't really,
low-key totally forgot that there were even Inquisitors in that TV show. That whole plot line was so forgettable. The only
yeah.
good thing that they did with the Inquisitors was when Darth Vader beat the piss out of Fifth Sister or whatever sister she was, but then they let her live. I was like, no way anyone, goes up against Darth Vader like that and walks away. But it's Star Wars, so it's all subjective.
Yeah. All right. So what's next? What we got next? Clone
Clone
Wars. I'm guessing.
Wars. Get into Clone Wars. Let's hear about. Let me say my piece, and then we'll get into it because I probably won't say too much because I know you guys are going to cover it. My piece on the best things to come out of Clone Wars is just the depth and understanding it gives. It's almost it kind of is a crucial piece to bridge the second and third movie in the sense that watching the third movie by itself, you just assume Anakin is just so whiny about why he's not a Jedi Master, and you go and look and watch Clone Wars, and you're just standing in front of the Jedi Council. You're like, I saved you once, I saved you once, I saved you twice. So you turn to Obi-Wan, like, I saved you like 17 times, right? All these Jedi Masters relying on him to win these battles, and then they're like, you can't be the same rank as us. And then on the flip side to Obi-Wan, I think it shows like he seems tired in episode 3 of and after you see what all he went through during the Clone Wars, you're like, this man deserves a break. Like, no wonder he doesn't go. He's not eager to seek conflict like Anakin is, who's during the Clone Wars is just like honing his skills and kind of feeding his egos. And you get Revenge of the Sith, where he's kind of very in his prime and very front heavy when like going into these battles. Those are my piece.
But man, if bro, I think with this episode, like obviously, I think Clone Wars is like just below, like the Rogue One series and the Andor series because I think that whole entire all of those episodes are great. Like there's probably like a couple in there that might have been a snooze fest maybe, but genuinely speaking, the whole entire series, animated series, is great. The best thing that came out of that for me was Fives. Fives was just freaking amazing. I loved everything about Fives, the clone, and there's so many good characters in it. Fives, Jesse, Crosshair, Wolf, like it goes on. Echo, Cody, you know, 99 was cool for what he is, Captain Rex. Like the list goes on there's just some of the best characters. Krill, as much as people hate him, I think Krill was a fantastic character. What do you think, Hunter?
I think Krill is a can I say a word that we can say on TV but it's a curse? I
Go
think
for it.
Krill's a jackass. But I think the writing is good, and I think the message that it was trying to convey was also good. I think in general for the Clone Wars, like you said, it was a great bridge between the Clone Wars or Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. A lot of seemingly plot holes that develop between the two movies don't end up being plot holes at all. And they're really careful of their craft. Like I think one thing that I love is because of the throwaway line, of General Grievous thinking that Anakin would be taller, they have to write it in a way that General Grievous never comes face to face with Anakin in the entire 7 season series. There are definitely a lot of skippable arcs, especially in the first couple of seasons. Anything where it's like Padme, C-3PO, and Jar Jar focused, I'm like, cool, we can skip a couple episodes. But
Yeah.
I do think that they cover a lot of broad topics of just like the fatigue of war and a lot of things that especially shows aimed at children for the most part, don't really get into, about like should you follow orders if you know that they're wrong, or like I won't get into every single plot point that they make, but it's just really interesting their approach to it. And I think I don't know if this was from George Lucas or Dave Filoni specifically, but like I think this was their first trial run of like really weaving everything together and creating these complex storylines. And it is kind of the basis of all of the Star Wars media we have today. Like, we don't have Rebels without this. We don't have The Mandalorian. We don't have Ahsoka, the TV series. We don't have any of it. And it is really like that groundwork for this great new wave of Star Wars media that we've been blessed to experience today. And as the seasons go on, it becomes more mature, bringing you to season 7, which I don't think anyone will disagree, but I love that they brought it back for a season 7. And then
Oh,
the way that they weaved everything in, I would love to see a supercut. Oh, and I know it exists somewhere, but I don't know where to find it. But a supercut of some of those last episodes of season 7 just weaved in with Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, I watched that the
It
other
should.
day, and it was like 8 minutes long of Order 66, and it combined like every Star Wars medium, video games. It was
That's
pretty
awesome. Yeah,
sick.
because you have like the Jedi Survivor, Jedi Outcast series. You have season 7 of this. You have the Mandalorian. You have a so yeah. There's so much. I mean, that's my favorite thing. Is every time new Star Wars gets released, I'm like, there's 99% chance that we're getting new media of Order 66. New camera
yeah.
angle.
Shout out to my boy Bly, and he's him and Akira.
I
If you know,
will
you know.
I will say final note, kind of behind the scenes for season 7, the fight between Ahsoka and Darth Maul. They actually brought Ray Parker back, who played Darth Maul in the first episode, and he did the motion capture for the fight. So like that fight was
That fight
motion
was amazing.
captured, yeah, between two actual people, and one of them was
Yeah,
Ray
no.
Parker, the original Darth Maul.
It's like the small stuff that was in that fight. Like, I'm gonna like nerd out just for like a micro, like 10 seconds. It was like this wind up where Darth Maul kind of like winds up, he arcs his body, and the way he moves his foot to kind of like get the motion, it was just so like chef's kiss, man. That's all I gotta say. Chef's kiss. It was just, I have no complaints about that fight. And the way Ahsoka was like, man, you better be happy Anakin is not here. Like, he would have wiped the floor with you. And it was just good.
All right, to end out the TV shows, give me your top 3 Star Wars TV shows.
Top 3 Star Wars TV shows?
Yeah, they don't have to be in order.
For me, it's gonna be, yeah. Let me think on this for like 2 seconds.
Okay, I'll take over. Mandalorian, of course. Andor, of course. The Clone Wars, of course. With honorable mentions to every other TV show. You know, actually, honorable mention to Star Wars Visions. I feel like nobody ever talks about it, but it's so. Everyone should watch at least the first season of Star Wars Visions, except maybe that one episode where they're just a band on Tatooine. Who cares about that episode? But I've rewatched that so many. There's so many cool concepts in Star Wars Visions, and so many cool plot lines, and barely anyone I've talked to has even seen. Not even the first season. But if you haven't, you should watch it.
I've seen bits and pieces of Star Wars Visions. I can talk with you about that off script because I don't want to go too deep, but I've seen bits and pieces of it. For me, it'll be Andor is number 1, Clone Wars is number 2, and for the sake of like, I'm gonna say Skeleton Crew because Skeleton Crew was cute, was different. It wasn't egregious or anything. Like it,
It was very
like
Star Warsy.
yeah, it was like very Star Warsy, and it seems like that's something like I can genuinely see kids getting into in the Star Wars galaxy, accidentally getting into their ship, getting blitzed off, and then they gotta find their way back home. I can genuinely see that happening in Star Wars, so that's why I really loved it.
That show was a pleasant surprise because I saw the trailers and I was like, you know,
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, maybe this is one for the kids. But then I found myself, waiting very intently for what is it, the Tuesday night, Wednesday night drop for every single episode. It was very
Yeah.
captivating.
Yeah, I genuinely loved it. Like, I love Mandalorian a lot as well, but I can't have them all up there. Mandalorian, like, if every season was like season 1, honestly, I kinda like, so I love Grogu, but I really wish season 3, they just never brought back Grogu and just show
Yeah,
him
I
just
agree.
being a bounty hunter. That would've been great. I would've, like, been all in on that. But I know Grogu sells, man. He freaking
Yeah, it was
sells, so
that was like the one decision of that TV show where I was like, that's so disappointing. It's fan service, and I mean the shelves don't stock themselves, but
yeah.
they should have brought back Grogu. At least not so quick.
I think my top 3. I'm gonna say Andor is not in my top three. It's a great show, and I appreciate what it did.
You're
But
doing damage control right now.
I am. But I think my top three, and this is one of these shows we didn't even mention. I'm gonna say in no order. I'll say Clone Wars, Mandalorian, and I'm gonna say Star Wars Rebels.
I thought you were gonna say Ahsoka.
No, Ahsoka's good. It's just there were like laggy kind of pieces. It's essentially what is it? Season 5 of Star Wars Rebels, and then the next season's gonna be like season 6 Star Wars Rebels. I just think Star Wars Rebels was good, and I think it expanded the lore a lot with like Darth Maul and Ahsoka, Darth Vader, and Ezra. I appreciated what
I
Rebels.
Yeah,
watched
bro.
that. I watched Rebels. I liked Rebels. I wasn't. I'm one of those few people that are not crazy about Rebels, and it's mainly because of the art direction. As petty as that
It is
sounds,
weird.
I just didn't like. I wish they would have just stayed with the Clone Wars look, but like, I just didn't like the art direction for
Get
me.
it. I get it. It takes a minute to get used to, but once you get used to it, it really does help distinguish it from the Clone Wars because it isn't a continuation
Yeah.
in any sense. So I understand why they went with a different art direction. I do like the nod to the original design of the lightsabers, which is why the lightsabers in Rebels are so skinny. And one other thing that I will say about Rebels, anecdotally, it does have my favorite scene in all of Star Wars media. If you remember, I can't even remember, but that one sarcastic robot that they pick up halfway through the series at one point where he's floating through space and he's like, "Oh, this is so peaceful," and then he starts singing show tunes, and those little, outer space birds start flying around him, and then he sees the ship and is like, "Oh no," it gets scooped up. Is the single funniest scene in Star Wars I've ever seen, and every time that comes across my For You page, I send it to my fiance and stare at her while she watches it because it's the funniest scene in all of Star Wars, and I will die on that hill.
Well, I think one of my favorite scenes in Rebels was whenever your boy Darth Maul decides, the seventh sister was just your time's up, bro. Like he came,
He like force pushes her off the cliff.
bro. He came in there and was like, "All right, your time's up, man."
Why don't people do that more often?
So I thought that was really cool. I will give one shout out to the Accolade.
Acolyte.
Oh my
Acolyte.
Acolyte. I can never say it.
I wanted to mention that show too, real quick.
I do not like it. Any sense of it, like it, I think it does get a bit of unjust hate in some ways, but for me, I hate it for different reasons. Like, not say different reasons. The reason why I hate it is because the story to me felt like it. To me, it felt like it was going nowhere. I felt like it was just a bunch of nothing, a nothing burger. But the Inquisitor and that man, I
Are you
forgot
talking
who.
about? Are you talking about what's his face? What's his face? He's not an Inquisitor. This is like High Republic.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I
Quimir, right?
wouldn't.
The
Yeah,
Sith.
Quimir.
The Sith. The
What a
Sith.
cool concept, and he has that helmet that like disables lightsabers.
Yeah, that's what I
I
was
will
just
never.
reading about actually, was the fact
Yeah.
that because I think the best thing coming out of the show by far is the fights, the choreography was great.
Beautiful.
But I was just like, we could turn lightsabers off now. But then I read that like his material can take a few hits, not like unlimited hits, but could take a few hits from lightsabers, and the frequency of like when that helmet hits a lightsaber hilt will deactivate and turn off a lightsaber, which I thought was like a cool little. No,
And
no,
the fact that his lightsaber hilt disassembles into like a regular lightsaber and a little like light dagger, so cool. And I mean, yeah, it took me a minute to get invested into the show as a whole, but then by the time I got to the season finale, I was like, great, I can't wait for season two.
Yeah, it just
I won't stop being mad at that.
yeah. I just didn't felt like the show was going anywhere. Then like there was some things that was kind of stretching my imagination, and if my imagination gets stretched, like you're really stretching. Like with the whole like you could breed a baby with the force. Or, yeah, I don't know. That one was just
That was a little
I
much.
yeah, I couldn't get really figure that one out. So I just left it alone. I didn't call it like woke or whatever the heck you want to call it. I just kind of left it alone.
It's not
It,
woke. the thing that
I
pissed
know, I know. It's not woke. Like,
Yeah,
I just don't know
that's the
what
thing
you.
that pissed me off is like you have a female lead and you have all these dudes in their mom's basement on Reddit being like, "Oh, the Star Wars is not woke now." Shut up!
It's
Like
like,
that's the reason it got canceled was because of all the review bombs. Like it was the second
It got
most streamed
canceled because
show.
it was so expensive to make that show, and they just didn't get
Okay, sure, that too. But it
turned
was the second
around.
most streamed series on Disney Plus in 2024. Like you gotta
yeah,
give it some credit.
yeah. Like I don't know what that was. I'm not saying it's woke because I don't think that's what it is. I just thought it was like just a. It was such a stretch. It was like, dude, like you could. I don't know. I feel like you could have did something else differently
Yeah,
because I'm all for like female leads and good story writing. Like you know,
yeah, you very
honestly,
woke on us.
I guess like I'm a, but
I'll,
Acolyte gets a little too much hate. Just getting that out
I
there.
would say the
Overhated.
two fun
Under.
facts about it is that the guy that plays Soul, he's from Squid Games. He learned English to play this role, so that's fun fact number one. And then number two is that Quamir, his master is, I'm sure both of you know this, but not everyone knows this because I didn't until the other day. His master is Darth
Very tight.
Plagueis, and Darth Plagueis is the one that goes on to train Emperor Palpatine.
That doesn't make sense in my head though, because it's the High Republic
I feel
era,
like
and
it's
I know
so
Darth
far
Plagueis
apart.
lives to be like 250 years old,
I'm about
but
to say Plagueis was like deep. That's like
But you don't know how
uh,
long that species lives
no,
for.
yeah, but no, Plagueis is like 250 years old when he dies because of his manipulation of the Force. But High Republic is like 1,000 or so years before the prequel, so I don't. I mean,
The
that's how
timing,
that's.
like,
I'm not arguing with you that that fact isn't true, but it seems like that fact might be fan service. You know?
he did because they're like in the books. He taught him the ways of the Sith and the Force, lightsabers, all that. Plagueis trained Palpatine for over 40 years in the books.
hmm
Like,
Did you read that book?
no, I did not.
I listened to it on audiobook, and that is one of the best Star Wars audiobooks I've ever listened to. It's like that one and Master and Apprentice are like number one and two if you haven't read it, which they're unfortunately only legends now, but I still think that there's a lot of relevant material.
yeah, that's like saying Darth Nautilus taught like Anakin how to fight. I don't know. That's just
Okay. So I have an answer to why
I'm
he
not.
lived so long. He discovered a form of immortality through transference, which is a Sith force power. It allowed him to transfer his consciousness to another body, to another vessel, and he just like hopped around doing that, and that's why he was able to live for so long and become so powerful.
really though.
And
That's
you know what?
like
To be completely fair to you, Holden, because I did just search it on Star Wars.fandom.com/wiki /star
the
underscore
Wikipedia.
Plagueis.
You mean the Wikipedia?
Yeah. No, this isn't Wikipedia. Or I guess no, this is Wikipedia. They do have the stranger /Quimir noted as one of his apprentices, so I'll give you that.
Thank you.
I honestly didn't know that. That
I didn't know that either. When you said
that felt like a stretch, but hey, I believe you.
yeah, it says canon on the Wikipedia entry. So if Wikipedia says it, it has to be true.
Yeah, has to be. You should read Star Wars Legends. Hold on.
I think I
The
read
Abeloth.
one
The
Yeah,
book.
Abeloth series. Like the Abeloth series is like scary. Like good
spoiler
scary.
alert, but like we're building to Abeloth and Ahsoka, right?
Huh?
Are we building up to the Abeloth and Ahsoka? It feels like that's where they're going.
I don't know because I genuinely don't know because I think you gotta have Luke. You gotta have Luke Skywalker. Then I think Sabine is like a Jedi Master Sabine,
Sabine,
if
yeah,
I
Sabine.
and, and a couple other dark Sith lords that they gotta find some way to work them together to fight against her. The Abeloth series, in my opinion, would be great because she was like an interesting characters, kind of scary, and Star Wars can kind of go into the little more dark because Andor just happened. I think Andor was obviously a great success, an amazing success. That you could write some darker Star Wars, stuff, and people will like it. So
We're gonna have to do video games another time. Maybe next year's Star Wars month we'll have video games.
yeah, I don't think we're gonna get to video games. That's like a whole another can of worms.
Yeah, I need a whole another hour to talk about all the video games. And it gives Hunter
Can I say,
like
can
year
I
to
say
play
one
it.
sentence about video games?
Sure.
Starkiller is too powerful to be canon.
Agreed.
Thank you, bro.
Agreed.
Thank you.
On that
Oh my
note, say thanks everyone for tuning in to our Star Wars month. Make sure that you remember to go back and listen if you missed it for all the letters to lead to the word for the giveaway. And as listed out in previous episodes, all the rules for entering that as well. As always, it's me, Perry, and you're going to be probably seeing a whole lot more of Hunter in the near future. So from all of us, appreciate you tuning in this month, and we look forward to putting out some good content for y'all over the coming months. See ya.